Hello, everybody. Welcome to Soapbox. My name is Mauro DePasquale. I'm the executive director here at WCCA-TV 13, the People's Channel, a place where you can learn, create, and connect. I'm also your host for Soapbox here, and we're glad you're joining us. I'm often saying that when I'm here, we're approaching, well, I don't have the number here. It's like about show 956 or 58, something like that right now today. It's always a privilege for me to be able to watch and meet so many people. Frank is going like this, so it's 957 shows. Thank you, Frank. It's a privilege because I get to see all the great talent that's in our area, whether it's in Worcester or in Central Mass, and the great organizations that are doing a lot. And I'm fortunate enough to make friendships. And one of my friends is here today, Doug Grindle, and he's a war correspondent, former war correspondent. Been working with the Deputy of Defense as a researcher for the Army, advising combat branches out over there and overseas. Doug, it's a pleasure. You've done a class here. You've trained people in news. You were a reporter at TV3.
Well, it's just such a privilege to be here, Mauro. I got to tell you, this is a terrific. This is community television is such an important thing for the community. It's just an honor and a privilege to be here with you, and it's amazing the amount of work that you guys get done. And I'm so glad to be here. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, and that means a lot coming from you because I know your background, and I was always waiting for your news bites to come in with the email when you were in Afghanistan, and you told it like it was, and we appreciate that very much. And
well, it's great to be here.
And now you're running. We understand you're running for an office. You're running for state rep.
Yep, that's it. Yeah, so came back, and I've been back about a year and decided to throw my hat in the ring. We're in the 5th Middlesex district of Natick, Sherborn and Millis. And, I figured, we've seen a lot of things work over in Afghanistan, come back, you see a lot of things could be better, and you can either try and make things better, or you can look up, 30 years from now and say, Doug, you could have tried, you could have helped, and you didn't bother. And I don't want to be, kind of one of those people that's just looking back, regretting, throw the hat in the ring and try and make the best of it.
Yeah. Well, it takes a lot of courage. I mean, it takes courage for me to go overseas and cover. I mean, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about that. First of all, what inspired you to do that? Because you didn't have to do that. There are plenty of gigs around here for a guy with your talent and your capability. Because you're a great writer. You could produce what's the word I'm looking for? Documentaries. Sure. TV news. But why decide, I'm going to go in the thick of it?
Well, this is the thing. I mean, as a kid, I was always interested in history. And when I saw Iraq happen, I saw Afghanistan happen, I thought, the biggest news stories in the world right now is going on is overseas with Iraq and Afghanistan. That was back in the early 2000s. And so I thought, what better thing to do than go over and actually cover and see what's actually happening, and then bring that story back so that people can actually understand it. And then I was very lucky because our news director at the time over at Channel 3 here was Martin Morenz. He moved up to New Hampshire, and I said, Martin, I would like to go over and do some stories, and also I'm going over to do stories for other outlets. Let's just go over and start covering the war. And so he said, absolutely, we'll take some stories up here in New Hampshire. And then the Worcester Telegram and Gazette, the Sunday Telegram, took some stories. Next thing you know, you're off to the races. And the reason to go over is because as a newsman, you want to see the most important, most interesting story in the world. And that was Iraq. That was Afghanistan. And how could you not want to go and do that? And I was personally lucky that I got to go over to Iraq. I think 11 times, spent between 1 and 3 months there each time. And Afghanistan, I was over there 10 times before I started working for the government, advising the government and the Army on various things. And, you go over and you see the amazing heroism, and I don't use the word hero lightly, of what these guys go through. I remember when we were over there, and you see the Army, the soldiers, they went there for a year, and then they would be there for 11 months, and then the Army turned around and said, we haven't got enough guys, and you've been guys and have been in combat in the risk of IEDs for a year, and now you get to stay until you're over there for a 15-month tour. And you know what these guys said? They said, okay, we'll stay, we'll do it, somebody has to do it. And these guys are away from their family with 1.5 to 2 weeks home for an entire 15 months. And they're under fire. They're at risk, a lot of these guys, at risk of getting struck by IEDs, small arms fire. And someone has to go over and explain what's going on. And I always felt when I was over there that the mainstream media, and I worked for outlet after outlet for perhaps 50 different outlets, including Fox News Radio and C-SPAN and television stations and newspapers across the land, and I felt that it was difficult for them to get out on patrol enough. And I really wanted to go over and really show what it's like for the people there, so you can explain what's going on, but then really spend week after week after week going on patrol so that people can actually understand for their local guys what they're going through. And to me, that was the epitome of how one could spend their life, to really try and make a difference. And it was a privilege to do that. So especially in the company of people, of soldiers, airmen, Marines, who were really spending their lives trying to make the world a better place. It was pretty inspirational, really. So, it's hard not to go back again and again when you're just, when you look at them and you sort of say, these guys are trying to do the right thing. I could stay at home, I could, report the news in a local manner, or, news does happen back here. There are fires, there's like floods, all that sort of thing. But, what's the most important thing in the world? I thought the biggest story was Iraq and Afghanistan. And especially when you looked at that and you could sort of see that many of the aspects of what was going on there were underreported, or were really not reported at all. And what's it like to go on a patrol in Ramadi, in Anbar, Iraq at 9 o'clock at night searching down like insurgents? I mean, you don't see that on the news every day, and there's a reason you don't see that, is because people aren't there with the TV camera capturing it. And so, the more you can get out, the more they get the word out, the better off.
Why is that though? Why weren't there more people? Well, the technology they have today, they can pick someone off like a mile or two away if they want to.
Well, this is the thing too, is like, this is what happens. It's the economics of the news makes it difficult for news reporters to get on patrol enough, and this is the simple reason why. One of the times I was over in Iraq, say in 2009, we run into the guy from ABC News, I think. He's based, there's one guy in ABC News doing Afghanistan roughly in 2009. Now, for him, and I had a working relationship with ABC News. I'm not knocking ABC News. They're a terrific organization, do a great job. But the economic reality is that they can afford to keep a guy to cover Pakistan and Afghanistan. For him to go on patrol requires him to go from Pakistan to Bagram Airfield, spend a few hours or a day there, depending on the military flights, go down to Kandahar, spend a few hours or a day, depending on the flights, go out to like a reasonably large base, 2 hours, to a day, depending on the Humvee trips, and then go out to a forward operating base, or the combat outpost, which is where I spent most of my time. And so you start to add that up. They got one guy for Pakistan and Afghanistan. He's got to cover everything, diplomacy, the health, you name it. Now, has he really got time to go from Pakistan to Bagram to Kaf to say Zari district, and then out to the COP? That's a 2.5, 3-day trip. Now, if he goes out there, there's only one patrol or two patrols a day. So now he's got to wait around for 18 hours till the next patrol, and then he's got to and then he's got to get back. So now he's got a week into it for one patrol of 3 hours. And so the news guys are like, this doesn't really work for us. And that's where freelancers such as myself come in. We're like, hey, I can take the time because I don't have to cover the health, the diplomacy and stuff like that in Islamabad or in Kabul. And I can take the time to actually go on patrol time after time. And that's how you get the stories.
So is that how it works? You're out there, you cover a story, and then what do you do from there? Do you pitch it back and say, here ABC, here NBC, whoever wants it, here it is? Is that how that works?
And so what I would do, for instance, is I would go over and I would know that, for instance, the Honolulu station always looking for stuff on their local soldiers, whether it's Hawaiian National Guard, whether it's 25th Infantry Division. And so I'd say, hey, and there's not just Hawaii, but there's another 25 or 35, And you'd say, I'm going over, these are your guys, this is what they're doing, do you want some stories? They'd be like, yes, we will take 3 to 5 stories. And so I'd go over and I'd spend a week and a half with whatever guy, whatever unit is. And to get the stories that I thought were necessary, you go on patrol, wait the next day, go on patrol, wait the next day, go on patrol. And that way you'd get the layered sort of feeling of like what it's like on patrol, as well as the overall sort of, you'd work in the context at the same time, which is what journalism is. I mean, journalism is really, it's the specifics as well as the context at the same time. But if it's all context, if it's all big picture, then you lose the feel for it, and people at home are just like, what do I care about Afghanistan? I don't really understand it, because they don't see it. And television is a visual medium, as you know. It's your business, and And unless you have the visuals, unless you have someone you hear talking, is that you switch off. It's like you might as well read a newspaper or something like that. And
Right.
the New York Times is very dense. Who really reads the New York Times? Not that many people for that reason alone. That's why they have like USA Today and stuff.
Right.
But if you don't see it, if you're not out there, you can't get the visuals. If you don't get the visuals, then you're not going to get the story. If you don't get the story, people aren't going to watch the story. And so someone needs to be there getting the story on the ground week after week, patrol after patrol. And I did it for 6 years because I thought it was an important thing to do. So, but it's crazy. I don't knock the news organizations, but I mean, news organizations back in the 60s was a public service in the same way that what you do every single day is a public service.
Right.
Back then, it was a public service, and by golly, they did the news, and they would actually make sure that it didn't matter. Didn't matter what was going on, didn't matter if they made money or not, they were doing the news. They had a pride in their organizations. Like I say, many of these organizations are very, very good ones. But now, in the 80s and the 90s, it's become a cash cow. And you can't have pride, get it no matter what, and also be a cash cow. And that's why we get like CNN, wall-to-wall Malaysian Airlines.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a Victoria's Secret catalog today when you even turn on the news. Sometimes it's all eye candy and it's nothing substance.
And it's celebrity news. You can use celebrity, and it's crazy. And in the same way that in your introduction you point out, it's a public service what you do, and that is exactly what news used to be before it became news you can use, before it became, this sort of like public celebrity sort of stuff. And it's disturbing in many respects, but I must say I admire many of the reporters, but they're under constraints.
Yeah. Now you mentioned there's one person out there. Who's directing him? Who's telling him to go? Someone just calling in? Is someone from Washington getting? Who's doing the lead work?
Well, this is the thing. I mean, the reporter on the ground is supposed to have. They have a producer who is sometimes a cameraman as well. And between the two of them, or the three of them, or the four, then they'll have a local fixer or a local guy as well. And they'll figure out some stories. They'll pitch it back up to Washington or New York. And New York will also have some ideas. They'll pitch it back. There's this sort of like, back and forth accordion effect, But what'll happen is sometimes it's like the reporter will say, we got enough people and I'm going out, and they can get fired for that. If they're just like, I'm going to go out and like do this stuff. I mean, Laura Logan got an award for a series in Ramadi. And she got in serious trouble for that because she just left and she just like turned off her phone and stayed out there, CBS News, stayed out there for 2.5 weeks, and they're furious because they're like, how can you be in the field and you don't even like check in? Because they would have said, hey, what are you doing out in the field? There's things to do. Get back to get back to Baghdad. She was
going after the story.
It's a tricky one. But this is the funny thing, and this is the difference of like. This is the frustration of being a reporter, though, and this is why I started working for the government as well, is because as a reporter, you're always on the outside looking in, and it's difficult. This is a frustration, is it's difficult to spend enough time on patrol so you actually know what's going on, but it's difficult also to understand the bureaucracy. And let's face it, these wars have hundreds of thousands of people over there. It is a bureaucracy, and it's difficult to understand where the weak points are. And one of the strengths of journalism is pointing out the weaknesses of other branches, of the judiciary, of the government, of private business. Love Canal, okay, it's a weakness. It's one of the strengths of journalism to look at the weakness. But journalists who don't spend enough time on the ground can't discover the weakness because they don't understand it. And so what's nice thing was, working for Department of Defense, working for a U.S. Agency for International Development, you get an extremely close-up insider view as to what works and what doesn't work. And that was fascinating because, many of the things that we try to do, you wouldn't, unless you're there as a reporter, you wouldn't know that. So,
what do you see, there's so many, I really need an hour to talk with you about this, so, and we're already 16 minutes in. But first of all, what do the Afghanistan, when you're out there, what do the people of that area, what do they really want?
Well, so this is the short answer is they want what Americans want. Okay, the long answer is this. People in America have the feeling that Afghans are ungrateful Muslim extremists. And this is what Afghans really are. They are people with families who generally work in agriculture, who want schooling for their kids and oftentimes for their daughters as well. And they want a health clinic they can go to, and they would like to be able to like not starve in the wintertime. And that's it. And so, so people are saying, is that this school is terrible. My kids don't learn anything. And they get angry about that. Sounds pretty familiar. And they say, hey, you know, it takes me 4 hours to get from the end of our district, from my village, to Kandahar, and it's a pain in the neck to try and sell my raisins up there. Pretty similar to here, you know, it's like, yeah, it takes forever on the pike to get into Boston, you know? Yeah. So in actual fact, what these people are, is they're exactly, in many ways, like us. And they're also grateful for the fact, and I've heard time and time again, there's this feeling that Afghans don't like Americans. And hey, why would they be fighting if they liked us? They'd all turn against the Taliban. Or they must hate us because that's why there's war. No, there's not. It's like, in actual fact, if you talk to the Afghans, and I have talked to village after village after village, what they say is, we are glad that you are here. Thank you very much. Now, if we're going to criticize, you're not here enough, because you don't provide security enough. And this is true in Iraq as well, is that if you go into the village once a week, then basically you're just laying them open to the insurgents come in and they're like, hey, what do the Americans say? And it's not security, but once or twice a week, then it's enough, the insurgents will never come back. And so what the Afghans say is, thank you for being here. In fact, we would like it if you were provided more comprehensive security, but if you weren't here, they would come in and our life would go back to exactly what it was now 15 years ago.
So is there no hope for these people to protect themselves? Is there no hope for that?
Well, this is the problem too, Mauro. It's like, you know, it's time and time again, as an advisor, you go in and you would say, and they would say, hey, look, you know, the government forced us in Afghanistan. The government forced us to give over our guns. We don't have any AK-47s. Yeah, when the insurgents come in, they've got guns, and sometimes the inexperienced platoon leaders, lieutenants, would say, you guys have knives, don't you? Why don't you just attack them with knives? There's more of you than there are of them. And so this is it's just not possible, because what happens is that the insurgents, you kill one of them, they're going to come back and they will like kill as many people as they want to, and they will bring guns to do it. Yeah. And they are the most vicious people in the world, because they are insurgents that are trying to destabilize the government by spreading terror. They're terrorists on a massive scale. Yeah.
And it's not religious based. I can't buy that.
No, it really isn't. It is this is what happened. It's like, you know, the problem really is on the Pakistani western part of Pakistan, is that there's a couple of areas where people are basically live really, really as if it were 500-600 years ago. And then there are a bunch in the last 20 years, these extremist madrasas. And these extremist madrasas have a lot, and I mean a lot, of people in them, and they have no contact with women. They have no contact with their families, not really. They have like really no socialization in the sense. And what happens if you put in, and I don't mean to like, to make it as a bad comparison, but an animal that's not socialized is not socialized and is like much more dangerous. Yeah, what happens with these kids it's like Lord of the Flies. It's like they go into these things, they're told like women are bad, they're told that the West is bad, they're told like anyone who doesn't agree with their specific Wahhabi sort of extremist Muslim beliefs is bad, and they get all the other guys on the other side. That's in Pakistan. So you get all these guys in Afghanistan, they're like, well, we just want to have, like I said, we want to like, you know, have like education for our kids. We want like a health clinic. We want like, you know, some roads would be nice. And we want the government to leave us alone. That's pretty much it. But, you know, so we'd like some help with the government. Besides that, leave us alone. And on the other hand, you've got all these guys in these religious schools, madrasas in Pakistan, who are encouraged by the Pakistani government to go over there and cause trouble in Afghanistan. And they go over and they stir up all this trouble. And there's always 10% of discontented people in these borderlands for whatever reason. Right. And so these guys go over and then they sort of like hang out and there you go. So you got an ongoing insurgency, but the massive, largest part of the Afghan people are just like, we don't want that. But what are they going to do? You know, the government is so spread out. And just to step back, the Americans for years, the international community for years said that you don't need as many, you only need a couple 100,000 police and army, you don't need that many. In actual fact, they need 400,000. So the Afghans have always been underfunded, they've been under-equipped, they've been undermanned for years. And then the Americans were under-equipped and underfunded and undermanned for years. And the Europeans, bit of a problem there in many respects. And so you get it's like these guys coming over the border, there's not enough people to protect the actual villagers, and the villagers are like, they're caught in the middle, and they're just like, it's great you guys are here, but we don't like the fact that America doesn't provide us real security. Besides that, you're the best thing since sliced bread.
Well, why don't we go all the way and just get it over with? I mean, because over the long run, it's going to cost a lot more money.
Well, this is true.
So why not just give them what they need, get it done?
Well, I mean, that's it. But this is the problem. It's like you can't, what happened really is that we ran Iraq and Afghanistan at the same time, and we shortchanged Afghanistan. And the insurgency basically went away from 2003 to 2007. And then in 2007, they came back and they learned some things about IEDs. And you saw that being on patrol, you start seeing IEDs trickling in. People start hitting them with the Humvees, which had been true in Iraq for years. So 2007, 2008, the IED threat goes right up. And
So, but where are they? I don't mean to interrupt, but where are they getting funded to create this stuff? I mean, this stuff doesn't grow on trees. They have to assemble it. They have to get materials. They have to put these.
Right, and
So where does that support
say
come
you get
from?
100% of the, say you get 100% of what it costs, and they probably spend $350 million a year, right? And we probably spend $100 billion a year right now.
Yeah.
But we used to spend about $70 billion. So anyway, so we outspend them 20 to 1. So it doesn't take that much compared. So they get a bunch of it from the drugs, they get a bunch of it from their ultra-Islamic connections, and they get a bunch of it simply from taxing the villagers too. So from these three sort of like resources, and then there's some leakage in other sort of like commercial activities as well. But is that they don't need that much money. It doesn't cost that much for an IED. Honestly, you can make it for like $50 or something like that. So, and it's and you've got all these wealthy backers. And this is what happens if you're dealing with extremists. Is with with Osama bin Laden. It's like I need some money. Put the hand out, and it comes flooding in. And the reason is because they've got this extremist Muslim ideology, and that always has backers everywhere in the world. Is that everyone, all extremists can find money if they really need it. So, and then they got the drug trade on top of it too. So
Now, we're almost out of time. There's just so much more to talk about. You're running for office too. Are you going to use these skills? I mean, do you see that? It's a perfect, to me, understanding your background. You've also, I didn't remember. I failed to mention that you produced GI Issue over here.
it was great,
which is a historical, and we played many encores of that series. By the way, looking forward to it. But are you looking at that, your history, the background, the skills that you have as a journalist? Can you apply those to as a state rep?
Yeah, I mean, this is how I see it. Is that if you look at this, there's two sort of aspects. Is like you can do things better. In the sense that in the USAID used to spend $200,000 to dig wells. Well, I and the Afghans and the military together, all three of us said, instead of building new wells cost $2,500 or $3,000 each, why don't we just repair the old wells that don't work? That costs $125 each. And by golly, and we fixed 500 or 600 of those. Just treat every dollar as precious, come up with new and better ideas, but also, and this is the other thing, is like, I am used to like bringing together the Afghans, the military, the civilian guys, the contractors, and and then the Afghan guy on the ground too. So the leaders as well as, so it's coalition building, and I think that's key if you want to get things done. You see things happen, people talk, nothing ever happens, and the reason is because no one's pulling them all together, finding the right thing to do, and pushing it forward.
Building on what's already there rather than just build something new and reinvent the wheel and watch the thing that's already there die.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you just have to care about it. Yeah.
Well, listen, we want to take it home. We got a couple of clips. We have a clip that you took from in Afghanistan.
Soldiers from Fort Drum drive their Humvees up a steep slope onto a ridgeline close to the Pakistan border. Soldiers say insurgents stage in Pakistan and come across the border at will.
They use that border because they know we're not going to go in there because it's too political. So they have pretty good freedom of movement across that border. That's what we're trying to stop.
The patrol settles in for lunch. It will stay for long enough until the Taliban try to attack them. It's the best way, soldiers say, to destroy the insurgents.
For us to get them to attack us, we got to make it look like they've got the upper hand, that they can conduct a successful attack. So we'll go sit on one of these hilltops out here and stay and wait on them.
Suddenly, the patrol gets word that the Taliban are massing and about to attack.
More than likely, I have a feeling they're going to hit up from the front because Greason's got a ridge line right to the front of his truck. Yeah. They can't assault up this side, they can't do a frontal, and they can't come up that way. If they could, but it'd be suicide.
The soldiers call in airstrikes of Apache helicopters, which zero in on the Taliban positions. Several Taliban are killed and others are hiding in a cave, which the helicopters also hit.
If they're like just crawled in there to, inside a crevice to hide, chances of survival 0. You're not going to live through that.
Just to be sure, the soldiers also call in a B-1 bomber strike and get off the ridgeline before the bombs drop. After the Taliban or Arab fighters fail to attack the American forces, it's likely they'll simply fall back toward the Pakistan border, regroup, and try it all over again. Near Forward Operating Base Bermel, Doug Grindle for CBS 5 News.
But I want to make sure you come back. Good luck running for state rep, and that's the 5th Middlesex district, correct?
Oh, thank you so much,
yeah.
Mauro. It's just such a privilege to be here. You guys do a terrific, terrific job.
Well, thank you. You just got to come back.
I'd love to.
Come back. Yeah, we'll get you back. Maybe the next time we shoot or something.
Sounds great.
Or we'll do a whole nother show. Until next time, I want to thank my friend Doug Grindle for enlightening us about what's been going on in his activities. Look for him as a future state representative here in this area. Until next time, I'm Mauro DePasquale. I look forward to seeing you on WCCA-TV 13, the People's Channel.
I was looking for a new career, and I found it at Quinsigamond Community College.
Each year, thousands of students discover new choices at QCC and build new careers around their schedules.
I walked in a student and walked out with a degree in information technology. And since I qualified for financial aid, I attended at no cost to me.
With more than 90 degree and certificate programs, you can build or enhance your career or transfer to a 4-year college or university. Quinsigamond Community College, a place of knowledge.
I was looking for a better career, and I found it at Quinsigamond Community College.
Each year, thousands of students discover new choices at QCC and build new careers around their schedules.
I walked in a student
and walked out with a science degree. And since I qualified for financial aid, I attended at no cost to me.
With more than 90 degree and certificate programs, you can build or enhance your career or transfer to a 4-year college or university. Quinsigamond Community College, a place of accomplishment.